Hi guys, Shushar here. Welcome to this new module. This module is about security and compliance in Office 365. So far we have looked into various productivity features of Office 365 like Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. But it is highly important that a software has to be secure and compliant as well. And that's what this module is about. Productivity is not the only thing which is required for a software to be famous nowadays. In today's age and world, security and compliance are equally important, if not more important. We have already discussed all kind of threats which are there in online world today, and honestly speaking we discussed a little bit of threats, but these threats are evolving every day. There is a new kind of a threat or a way of scamming the people which comes up every now and then, and how all businesses wants to ensure that whatever software they use is fully compliant and secured. So in this module, we are going to talk about the compliance and security features of Office 365. I'm going to explain you some of the features which are highly utilized in today's corporate world. So Microsoft, like in every other aspect of Office 365, it keeps adding new and new security and compliance features to Office 365 as well. But I'm going to share some of the features with you, which I have seen most of the businesses using, and rest of the features as well. They are not very difficult to deploy. As long as you have a correct license which supports those features, you will be able to deploy them in your tenant. Okay, so before we move ahead, let me just explain you what do I mean by compliance. Like security is a common word, but I'm just making sure that you understand what do I mean by compliance. There are a lot of legal compliances which the world has, or the governments of the world, or the society has put on businesses. There are compliances around the security of data, the privacy of data. So, businesses, let's say a hospital, they have a lot of sensitive information of patients who have visited them or who are their patient, and they need lot of security measures to ensure, or the world, the government, the society expects them to have a lot of security measures in place to ensure that the data of the patients cannot be stolen from their databases, right? So any software which they use, they want to make sure that they are compliant, or the software is compliant with the various compliance standards. So of course, now like I mentioned that the data needs to be safe. So that's one thing. Now, how do I decide that my data is safe? I myself can put multiple passwords on a folder, or I can put my server in a like a huge locker with or a huge safe, maybe underground safe, and I can feel that I'm compliant, or I'm safe, or my data is safe. And there could be another guy who may want to keep his server in the World Bank and put it under like protected with Thor and Iron Man and those people. So, and then he may feel that his data is safe. So there is no set standards. And of course, as a human society, civil society, we need standards. So there are a lot of organizations and standards which have come up, and I'll show those standards to you. Like there is a health professional standard. It is called as HIPAA. So they have created their own various standards that this is how the data should be treated. Then there is ISO compliance, which are available in the world, International Standards Organization 27001, and they are the IT compliance standards. So those compliance standards are available. Then there is this GDPR, which is Europe's data privacy law. So these are some compliance standards. And then there are other reasons as well for compliance. Like if you are working or if your client is a lawyer, then they need to hold the data, or maybe the court requires them to hold the data of all the legal cases on which they are working for at least 10 years after the case has been closed, or has become inactive. So they need to make sure that all the emails, all the data regarding that case needs to remain available for a period of 10 years after the case has been closed. Mostly all these businesses try to retain the data permanently. So this kind of compliance features are there, or compliance requirements are there, and because of these compliance requirements, all the businesses are very careful about the software which they are going to choose for their business, because they want to make sure that their software also understand all these compliance requirements and is able to fulfill them. Similarly, for security, there is no amount of security after which you can say that it is enough. We went from passwords to highly complex passwords, from a single password policy to multiple password setting objects to create multiple password policies. Then we have gone into two-factor authentication, where an OTP comes on your phone on the real time and you have to put that OTP in. Then we are talking about passwordless infrastructure. So there is a Windows IR and Windows Hello login available, which actually log you in with your facial expression. So no password required. It's unless it is you, the PC is not going to unlock. So there are various password things and security features which keeps coming up, and all these software, especially a public cloud like Office 365, needs to make sure that it is on the top of the game, to make sure that it is bringing in more and more security features in Office 365. And it also have to make sure that all these security features and compliance features do not hamper the real essence of Office 365, which is the productivity and convenience. So yeah, that's what security and compliance means, and that's what this module is about. So here is what we are going to cover in this module. We are going to tell you about the Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. So this is a central administrative console where all the security and compliance features are available. Then we are going to talk about multi-factor authentication and conditional policies. These are two of the top-notch security features which Azure Active Directory uses to prevent your identity. Then we are going to talk about the retention policies. These are the policies which, like I said, that legal people need to maintain the data for 10 years. These are the retention policies where you can define for how long the data needs to be secured in SharePoint sites or in mailboxes. Then once you have secured the data, sometimes for legal purposes or any other purposes, you may want to do a e-discovery of the data. So e-discovery is a process where Office 365 can run a search in all the mailboxes and in all the SharePoint sites, and you can provide it keywords, and then it can pull up all the data from those mailboxes and locations, and it can give all that data to you. So it's like a master search which you are running across your whole tenant. And of course, there are parameters which you can specify. We are going to look into it. Then data loss prevention. So data loss prevention is once again a compliance as well as a security requirement, that you have to make sure that your data is not passed around casually. You have 5,000 employees in a company, and you can teach them whatever you want to teach them, or you can tell them whatever you want to tell them. But one rogue employee can go ahead and cause a lot of damages to the company. So IT and technology is going ahead and ahead to make sure that such things can be stopped. And even if somebody wants to go rogue and wants to leak out your data, there are measures in place to prevent people from doing that. So that's what data loss prevention is about. Okay, let's get started. Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. The Security and Compliance Center is designed to help you manage compliance features across Office 365 for your organization. Links to existing SharePoint and Exchange compliance features bring together compliance capabilities across Office 365. Okay, that is the Google definition, or the definition from Microsoft, and this is my definition. It is an admin panel where all the security and compliance solution for services available in Office 365 are provided. So you don't have to individually go into each solution in admin panel to configure them. If you would have noticed, while we were doing Exchange online, there was in the admin panel there were options for retention policies, right? So retention policy is available there and has been put in Security and Compliance Center as well. Why? Because the retention policy which you saw there, what was a feature of exchange, and the retention policy which you are seeing in Security and Compliance Center may also use that feature of exchange, but it is giving you a centralized place, because from there you can do the retention policy of Exchange server, as well as you can apply the same retention policy on the SharePoint sites, because the individual installation of SharePoint and Exchange, they don't know each other. If you try to do a retention policy, let's say from the Exchange admin panel, then you can do the retention policy there, but only for the mailboxes. You can't do the SharePoint retention policy from there. So you'll have to go into SharePoint and do the retention from there. Then what about Teams? What about the other places where the data is available, like OneDrive and all that? So that is why Security and Compliance Center, it did not used to be there before. Earlier there was admin panels for each and individual application only. But now Microsoft is thinking that Office 365 is a suite of services, and there has to be a dedicated console for security and compliance as well, so that you can go there and implement all kind of security and compliance features. And they are making this Security and Compliance Center more and more better and improved. Okay. Now we are going to just have a look on the Security and Compliance Center on our Azure, on our Office 365 tenant. So come on. Okay. Teams has been configured, so Teams is getting launched as well. The good thing about Teams and OneDrive is that they get started automatically. Uh, okay, so now I don't have the two icons. If you remember, yesterday I had two icons for OneDrive here. That must have been some kind of a temporary issue. Now that I have rebooted the computer, it's cleared up. Waiting for Chrome to launch. So I go to portal.office.com. There are multiple ways in which you can go to Office 365 different URLs, like admin.microsoft.com is a URL directly for admin panel. But yeah, I suggest you that you remember one or two URLs which are required, and actually when you keep working you will kind of remember all of them. But yeah, just use any one of them, because as long as you come here to any one of these places, then from here you can navigate to wherever you want to go. So we were doing Security and Compliance Center. So earlier they used to be same center. Now once again Microsoft is making it better and better. So they have broken the security and compliance into two different centers, I reckon. Yeah, okay. So when I launch it, it's still coming to be the same center here. Let me, what did I launch? Did I launch? So I'm just trying to make sure that, yeah, security and compliance. Okay. Yeah, so I reckon in future Microsoft is going to break them into two different admin centers, but for now they are in the same admin center. So this is what Security and Compliance Center is, and GDPR, like I said, that it's a global data privacy thing which is done by European Union or EU, and because most of the businesses in some form or place work with Europe, unless it's a very small business. So everybody have to comply to GDPR, and they have provided a GDPR dashboard. They have provided you other governance dashboard. So they have given you this threat management. From here, you can create multiple policies. You can create a spam policy from here as well. Remember, we did it from Exchange Admin Center, but I reckon they have provided a spam policy here as well. So the same connection filter, same default spam filter policy, a spoof intelligence policy. So these things have definitely got a lot better. Microsoft put various additional softwares and suits behind the scene to make these things very advanced. So yeah, you can just go through here and look at the various policies which are there. The basic fundamentals are going to remain the same. So SPF, DKIM, you will see those things. International languages, regions, these are pretty self-explanatory, so you can do that. And yeah, so you can create an anti-phishing policy. So phishing is a process where companies or people or spammers, I should say, they send you messages on email and they ask you that your credit card is going to be blocked tomorrow. Go ahead and fill up this information. They send you a link, and on that link, when you go, they basically ask you for your credit card information, and you go ahead and put it. So because they make it look so real, they will make the website where the link will take you, they will make it look like your bank's website, so you automatically will believe that it's the bank, and you'll go ahead and provide the information, and then they can steal your money. So yeah, then here is the search and investigation. This is the eDiscovery things which I was talking about. The governance, you can import data to Office 365. So there are various things, and then this is the dashboard, and from here you can do the other things. So one of the security measure is having the right alerts, so that if something wrong happen, you can get an information or an alert that something is going on. So you can create your alerts here. Uh, you can create alerts policy, you can view your alerts, those things are available. Permission is the permissions to access this particular area and to do various things in it. Being a global admin sometimes is not enough, and you might have to give yourself permissions here. I think I did show this to you before as well. So like, you just go ahead and see members are none, so you go to edit and add yourself here. You will have to log off and log back in for the permissions to take effect. uh, Classification, you can, this is a part of the data loss prevention labels. So you can set up the labels on the document. You can create labels like confidential document or general document or do not share kind of, and people will get those confidentiality labels on their Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and Outlooks, and they can just quickly choose what kind of document they are working on, and based on the label which they choose, you can kind of create policies that if somebody has marked a document confidential, then nobody can take a printout of that document. So things like that. So that's data loss prevention. Then you can do a lot of mail flow things. Message trace used to be a feature of Exchange server. You can go to message trace and look at a certain email. If somebody is saying that the email is not available, then you can do the message trace from there. But now they have put it here, so you can start doing the trace here. eDiscovery is once again the content search which I was talking about, the legal things. So this is basically your security and compliance center. What they have done is that everything that you need, they have put it here, the retention policies, information governance. So you can create your own retention policies. Earlier, this used to be done individually in SharePoint admin panel and Exchange admin panel. Now you can do it for everybody from here. We're going to look into retention policy later. So this is what your security and compliance center is. Let's go back to the training. Okay, now we're going to talk about multi-factor authentication. So Azure multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is a process where a user is prompted during the sign-in process. Now, this is a security method. So, multi-factor authentication is a process where a user is prompted during the signing process to perform additional form of identification, such as to enter a code on their cell phone or to provide a fingerprint scan or something you have, such as a trusted device that is not easily duplicated like a phone or a hardware key. So, what happens is, we set up, there is an application called as Microsoft Authenticator. You can download it on your phone. This is how it looks like. Uh, we'll just read this definition as well. What is MFA? Your passwords can be easily compromised. MFA immediately increases your account security by requiring multiple form of verification to prove. So as soon as you log in, and everybody of us has experienced MFA in some form when we have logged into our bank website or other places where it asks you to provide a second factor of authentication, and just because you know your password, it doesn't let you log in. So that's what MFA is. Now, of course, in Office 365, you can configure MFA. So we are going to look here, and I really wonder if MFA has been brought in here in Security and Compliance Center. I don't think it is here yet, so I'm just going to show it to you where you can do it from. So you have got here active users, and you have this multi-factor authentication. Let's see what happens. It takes you to, I reckon, as your Active Directory. Okay, yeah, so it has gone into multi-factor. So what you can do is that you can go ahead and enable multi-factor authentication. So you can enable multi-factor authentication for a user here, and what's going to happen is, I'll show you. So I'll enable this for this user. So about enabling multi-factor authentication, please read the deployment guide if you haven't already. So let's just have a look at it. And if your users do not regularly sign in through the browser, you can send them this link to register for multi-factor authentication. Okay. So this is a whole article which they have talked about multi-factor authentication. So I won't go into the details of it. So now what has happened is that earlier, if you noticed that every time it was asking me for more information about myself, and I've kept skipping it, right? Now it is making sure that I have to do this because I have enabled multi-factor for myself. So what's going to happen? So your options are that authenticate by phone or authenticate by mobile app. So if you install the Authenticator app on your phone, then you can set up mobile app. How do you want to use the mobile app? Receive notification for verification, use verification code. So once again, you have got two options. If you use mobile app, either the mobile app will give you a pop-up to say that somebody is signing in, do you allow it? And you say allow, and you put your fingerprint on it. And the second option is that you use a verification code. So when you sign in, it will basically show a verification, it will request a verification code from you. You can go in your app and you can pick up the verification code. So these are the verification codes which always keep showing there, and they keeps getting refreshed. So as soon as you need a code, you open your app and you can look for the code. Now here, as you can see, in a single authenticator app, you can actually have multiple accounts configured in it. So that's what is going on here. So let's say that the person is logging into this account, so he'll use this code. If he's logging into this account, then he will use this code. If he's logging into this account, then he'll use this code. Okay, so you use verification code and you receive notification for verification. Or the other one is that you receive a text phone every time you log in. So you choose your country and you put your cell phone number here. So I was able to configure my multi-factor authentication. I put my telephone number there, and I have configured the multi-factor. So what I'll quickly do is that I will log off from here, and I'll close all these other windows, and I will re-log in as the user. Okay, it needs a OTP to log in every time. So I'm going to provide it the OTP. So we enabled multi-factor authentication. So this is what multi-factor authentication is. You can do it at multiple places. Like you can go to like you were able to do it from the admin panel here, or you can also go into Azure Active Directory and from there you can do it. So it's multiple places for the same thing. So we were able to do it from here, and you can do it from the Azure Active Directory if you go here. So there's this multi-factor authentication. You can go from here as well. So there are various ways to do the same thing. So this is what multi-factor authentication is, and a lot of organizations use it. In fact, all the organizations pretty much use it now. If some of them are not using it, then that's really scary. Now, what are conditional access policies? Conditional access policies is another exceptionally useful security feature in Office 365. Conditional access is a tool used by Azure Active Directory to bring signals together to make decisions and enforce organizational policies. Conditional access is at the heart of new identity-driven control panel. Azure Active Directory Conditional Access supports following device platforms. So it supports Android, iOS, Windows Phone, Windows, Mac OS. Achieve zero trust with Azure Active Directory Conditional Access. So this is the latest article. Never trust, always verify. Finally, every access must be verified. Azure AD Conditional Access provide you the ability to verify identity, device, app, and data, and a lot of things. So conditional access is something which puts the brain into the services which are available. So based on the conditions, it takes various decisions. So let me give you a use case. The problem with multi-factor is that if you go ahead and enable the multi-factor for any user here, then you have enabled a hard multi-factor. What does that mean is that every time the user has to log in, he has to provide an OTP, which is a problem. The good thing about this is that maybe you can enable multi-factor authentication only for administrators, and you don't enable multi-factor authentication for the basic users, because administrator has power in like a more powerful credential, and if their credentials are compromised, then the spammer or the hacker can cause a bigger harm to you. But a basic user, maybe you don't want to do multi-factor on them, like, but this is a like a compromise in a way, right? The other problem with multi-factor is that if you go ahead and enable multi-factor, then every time the user has to log in, he has to launch or he has to provide the two-factor authentication, which makes the people unproductive. You have to think of the solution from both ways, that the solution has to remain productive as well, because ultimately that is the reason that you got Office 365. Now, what we can do is that we can use Azure Active Directory conditional policies. If I can find where they are. Alright guys, so this is what I'm talking about. Microsoft keeps changing where the stuff is. So what I'm going to do, I'll go to all services here and I can search here conditional. Okay, Azure AD conditional access. Alright. So the first thing with conditional access is that you can choose on whom you want to apply it. So if the user is a certain user, or maybe if user part of certain groups, then you apply on it. So you can apply the policies only on administrators. And the best thing is that you can apply the policy today, and if somebody becomes part of the group maybe 6 months later, then also the policy will get applied on him. Now you can say either you can apply it on cloud apps or on action. Now by cloud apps, it means that you can apply that if they're accessing Exchange Online, then apply it. But if they're accessing SharePoint Online, then don't apply it. So you can select the apps. Third, you can apply it based on location or the device platform. So now location is something which is really useful. Why? Because let's say that you want to put conditional access, or you want to put multi-factor authentication on all the users, that they should provide the two-factor password. But 80% of the time, user works from your office. And when they are working inside the office, they should not have to provide multi-factor authentication because they are already in a safe environment. They're not traveling, they are not like on a beach or cafe somewhere. So what you can do is that you can provide locations and you can say exclude or include. So basically you do exclude all trusted locations, and under trusted locations you can provide the IP address. So you can selected locations. So first you have to create locations somewhere. Yeah. So yeah, basically you need to define locations somewhere, and the locations are defined by IP address. So I'll look for that and I'll tell you. But what you do is that you put your office location here and you say that you exclude it from this conditional policy. Now what happens? That this conditional policy will not apply on users when they are inside the office. And what this policy is going to do, you say require multi-factor authentication. Or there are various other things. Now this is one of the use case which I have seen. So basically based on certain conditions, you are applying a policy, and the most common use case which I have seen is that you do conditional multi-factor authentication. So you don't do a forced multi-factor authentication like this by going here and enabling multi-factor authentication. Rather, you do a conditional multi-factor authentication. So this way, the user is only going to be prompted for providing the second factor authentication if they are not behind certain IPs. So if you have 4 offices in the world, you can put their public IPs as the allowed location, or you can probably even provide the locations in form of countries. So as long as they are within a certain city or within a certain region, yeah, as you already named locations. So you can say countries or regions or IP ranges. So you can provide my Sydney office. So you can say, okay. So basically, if the request is coming from any Sydney area, then the multi-factor will not happen. Let me just complete it. Or maybe you don't want to be that generic, you want to provide it as an IP address only. So you say the IP address is, and let me quickly look, what is my IP? What is my IP? And I keep doing these things so that you remember these tricks. What is my IP? This is me checking the public IP of my internet connection. So you go ahead and put it here, and I'm marking Sydney office. I'm considering this as my Sydney office, and I'm marking it. So it didn't like the IP address. I don't know why. Thirteen 13.75.193.65 13.75.193.65. Okay, so it's asking for a range. How do I provide it a range? Okay, so it basically wanted to have in this format. So by doing /24, I have allowed this IP here. So say create. Okay, so I created this location. Now I will go to my conditional policy, and in Azure AD conditional access, okay, even named locations were available here. Okay, cool. So I policies, I say new policy, and I say MFA conditional policy, and I say apply to all users. Okay, and then I say all apps or selected apps. So I can select apps which are available. These are all the apps which are available in my Office 365. So you can connect Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Sway, so many apps, even the third-party apps which you register for single sign-on as enterprise apps in your Azure Active Directory. I told you Azure Active Directory is a platform as a service. You can use it for authenticating your even other third-party apps. You can integrate those third-party apps under enterprise applications, and then you can authenticate those apps. And the best thing is that even for them, you can use multi-factor authentication. So include none, include all cloud apps, okay? And now, what is the condition? Is the location, exclude or trusted location, or I can specifically say my Sydney office. So if they are in Sydney office, then they don't do anything. And then what do? You say require multi-factor authentication. So now it is giving you a warning that you should apply it to some users, and don't lock yourself out. So it is giving me a recommendation, don't apply it on this user as of now, because just in case you have created a blunder, then you can lock out yourself. So it's asking to exclude this user, and I reckon that's what it did it. And this MFA conditional policy is in place and all users excluded. Oh, it hasn't excluded anybody. So yeah, so you can go ahead and put some kind of a conditional policy, and this is what a conditional policy is. Now I will open this article here. This talks about conditional access. It's a very good article. So there are signals like location, devices, applications, risk. Then verify, allow access, require multi-factor, apps and data. So you can take a decision based on the location, the apps which are in use, or the users which are doing it, and then you can do the enforcement of MFA and other things. And the common signals are user and group membership, IP location, devices, whether it's an Android. Maybe you just want to apply the policy or require multi-factor on an Android device because you believe that it is a very unsecure device. So if the user is accessing from an Android device, then I want to do MFA. Application, so certain applications, maybe time and based on the application which they want to access. So if they are accessing the accounting application, then you want to put MFA. If they are accessing just their SharePoint Online, then you don't want to put MFA. So you can do it based on that. Common decision, block the access or grant the access, but based on these conditions. Commonly applied policies required multi-factor authentication for users in administrative role, multi-factor authentication for Azure management tasks, block signings for user attempting to use legacy authentication protocol, require trusted location for require multi-factor authentication, stuff like this, customer case studies, and yeah, whatever. So this is a good article. Go to this article if you want to read more about conditional policies, but that's what conditional policies are. So they are amazing. They make Office 365 more secure. Now we are talking about the retention policy. Retention policy is how you retain your data. Retention policies enable organizations to decide proactively whether to retain content, delete content, or retain and then delete the content when needed. Apply a policy to all content or just content meeting certain conditions, such as items with specific keywords or specific types of sensitive information. The good thing about retention policy is, first of all, it's a compliance requirement. You retain data mostly because of compliance reasons, that you might need the data in future and you want to be able to access it. It's not a security feature, it's a compliance feature. Now, the things which makes retention policy special is that you can retain the content or delete the content based on the policy which you have created, and then you can also be very granular about the type of content which you want to retain. You may want to retain a specific mailbox. You don't want to put a policy on all the users. You may want to just retain data with certain keywords. So you don't want to specify a mailbox, but you want to say that any email or any document which has the keyword Iron Man in it, retain that. So it's going to retain that and not the entire mailbox. Okay. So let's go to the Security and Compliance Center and see how we can do retention policy. I'll close this. And once again, guys, I forget where it is. Yeah, retention. So we create a retention policy. Retain data 90 days. Okay, so you should be very careful while naming these policies, because imagine a situation where you have 20 policies here, and you don't know which policy applies to which data in your organization and what is the purpose of each policy. You can't go into the details and settings of each policy and keep looking at it. But if you put right kind of a name here and right kind of description here, just looking here, you can decide like which policy you want to go and have a look at, and then you can read the description here. So that's what your retention policies are. Now the setting. This applies to all content, and you will be able to choose the location next if you want to apply settings to content that contains specific info or advanced settings. Yes, I want to retain data, and for this long, so you say 7 years. For 7 years you want to retain data. Retain content based on when it was created. Now, there could be two kind of a retention. You can say that, okay, this file is created today and I'm going to retain it for 7 years. All right, that's one way to look at it. The other way of look at it is, when was it last modified? So a file could have been created today. It could have been modified 5 years later. That means the file is still in use. And then based on the first label, you will be only retaining it for 2 more years, because, or 3 more years, or let's say make it 7. So you'll be retaining it for 2 more years. But if you go here, then based on last modified, then you will be retaining it for 7 more years. And I personally believe that when it was last modified is the correct way of putting the retention policy, so that you can retain the data for a longer time, because there could be a file which you are modifying every day. What if it was created 5 years ago but it is still in use? You have to retain it for 7 years after you stop using it. Now, do you want to delete it after this time, or what do you want to do? So if you say yes, it's basically going to purposefully delete it. If you say no, it's going to remove the control from it, and if a user deletes it, it will get deleted. Okay. Or the other way to look at is that you want to say no, just delete the data. So you don't want to keep data older than 5 years in your organization. Maybe that's a risk for you. You don't want to keep that old data, and based on when it was modified, you say that after 7 years, when a file is modified, just delete it. That's a lot of garbage. We haven't used it for 7 years. We are not going to use it. Okay. So then you have got more advanced retention settings as well. Detect the content based on specific words and contains sensitive info, so you can do that. Choose the location. Where do you want to retain the data? I want to retain it in Exchange. I want to retain it in SharePoint. I want to retain in Office 365. I want to retain in Office 365 groups. I want to retain in Skype for Business. I want to retain public folders. I want to retain team channels. I want to retain team chats. Okay. So you might have to create separate policies for these two. For some reason, they don't gel along with each other. Okay. So, yeah, this is the data which you want to preserve. Okay, now what do you want to do is, who do you want to include? All? Yeah, all the Exchange mailboxes. But you know, Sam doesn't want his data to be preserved. So, you say, exclude recipient, Sam. So, everybody's data except Sam's data will be preserved. Ship on site. Maybe there is a site which you don't want to preserve the data for. So, I don't know why it is not showing the sites. but what we have created are more of team sites actually. That's why it is not showing them. Under Teams, it might show it. So if you have a regular communication site in Office 3, in SharePoint Online, or a site which you just created from there, a team site, not a Teams site, which we have, then it will show up here. OneDrive account, so you can exclude account. You basically get the idea. So you can choose who you want to preserve, you can choose who you want to exclude. Okay, so yeah, that's your retention policy. Okay, retain the data for 90 days. Description, I didn't put any, and this we are retaining. Keep the content. So see, this is the error which I have done. What I have done is I have put the name as 90 days, whereas the policy which I am doing is 7 years. Ideally, what I should have done is retain data 7 years, 7 year, and EXO, SPO, and what else? OneDrive, and one more thing which we are retaining. So you have to name it correctly so that when it shows up here in the list, you can actually make out that what this policy is for. And see how convenient it is for you. Let's assume I was telling you before that you can do retention policy from Exchange as well, Exchange offer retention policy. And most likely, this retention policy which we created here, it is going to use the Exchange technology in the back end to do the retention. And you have a default retention policy here, you can create more retention policy here, but this policy will get applied only on this Exchange server. Then you go to SharePoint and create another policy, whereas from the admin center you were able to create a policy which is covering everything. You were able to choose, just select all the options which you wanted to. So this is what is retention policies, and they are very useful. Right, guys, so let's go back to training and see what's next. So those were retention policies. eDiscovery. eDiscovery, electronic discovery, is the process of identifying and delivering electronic information that can be used as evidence in legal cases. You can use eDiscovery tools in Microsoft 365 to search the content of Exchange Online mailboxes, O365 groups, Microsoft Teams, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for business sites, Skype for business conversations, Yammer Teams. You can search mailboxes and sites in the same eDiscovery search by using content search tool. You can also use core eDiscovery cases to identify, hold, and export content found in mailboxes and site. If your organization has an Office 365 E5 license or Microsoft 365 E5 subscription, you can further manage custodian and analyze data content using the advanced eDiscovery solution in Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 provide following eDiscovery tools: content search, core eDiscovery, and advanced eDiscovery. So getting back here and going to eDiscovery, you went ahead and put the retention policies in your tenant, and all the data is getting retained. Even if the user goes ahead and deletes the data, or even if you actually go ahead and delete or remove the license from a mailbox, even those mailboxes will be retained. User will not be able to use it, but that data will be retained. So now all the data is getting retained. Now you want to get access to that data. One fine day, a legal case comes up, or for some other reason, the business wants you to provide that data which was deleted. How do you get it? Well, you go into eDiscovery. eDiscovery is the process to get the SAM legal data. Okay. So I'm just starting a case. Again, give it a correct name or a reasonable name with which you can relate to it. This is a case. We haven't started the search yet. Now we come here and we want to create a hold, or first we create a search. Let's say what we do. So for this legal case, what we want to do is that maybe there is no retention policy in place and we just want to create a hold. Hold any document with Iron Man name. Okay. Choose location. So choose which user or group you want to include. What you can do is, does it give you an option of all? So it says Sam. So you are going to do this to Sam mailbox. You can choose the SharePoint sites as well. You want to choose the Exchange public folder. Then you basically say keyword Iron Man. You can add conditions like the date of the document should be between this and this, the author of the document should be this, the sender of the email should be this person. You can have various conditions because this is like a search operation which happens. And you basically review your settings and create this hold. What this is going to do is that this is not going to provide you any information, but it is, let's say that there is no retention policy in your organization. This is going to create a kind of a retention policy, and with that retention policy will ensure that any document in Sam's mailbox or the SharePoint sites which you selected, if it has the name Iron Man in it, the keyword Iron Man in it, then it will be put under a hold. And even if the user deletes it, user will not feel that it's not getting deleted. As far as user is concerned, he can go ahead and delete it. But we will always be able to access this information with the uses of eDiscovery. Okay, so I say create this hold. Now you just created a hold. What you want to do now in this case as well is that you want to get some data. So what you want to do is Iron Man. Anything with Iron Man you want to get. Okay? And you want to add conditions. So you can say the sender should be Stark Industries. You can put conditions like that, a domain. You can say the subject of the email should be this. Like you are trying to limit your result because maybe you feel that with one keyword the results are going to be gigantic. So many results will come back. So instead of getting all those results and then you manually going through each and every one of the files and emails to identify what you were looking for, you can go ahead and provide some kind of inputs. If you already know the subject of the email, if you already know the author of those documents, you can provide that information so that Office 365 can provide you only that limited information. But believe me, in most of the cases where we have done eDiscovery, what we do is that we provide all the content to business, because you have to understand that differentiation between yourself as an IT service provider and them as business. They are the people who have to take the call what is relevant and what is not relevant. It is your job to provide the data. Now, what is the location? You can say all locations. In your whole tenant, whatever groups, whatever teams, whatever SharePoint sites, whatever email services, wherever this Iron Man is available, you go ahead and find it out. Or you can say specific locations where you can provide the mailbox name. So let's say you only want to look for Sam's mailbox inside Sam's mailbox, or you want to only look into an ex-employee mailbox, then you will be able to provide this here. Say all location and then you say save and run. Iron Man search. What we are doing right now is called as content search. Now, it didn't find anything because there is nothing called as Iron Man in our system. So I'll just look for Microsoft. If it can find something, that'll be interesting. Now I'm running without any keyword. It is bound to find some data now because I'm just asking it to find anything. It's going everywhere and looking into all the data. This is gigantically powerful tool, and I just feel Microsoft is giving away so many things for free to us. Look at all the stuff, the documents from the team sites, and everything is has come up here because we didn't provide any keywords, right? So that's why. So this is completed. Now we are going to save it, and then we are going to export. Uh, what happened? The search. Okay, I'll say this, save and run. So it's once again going to pull up all the data. And then you should save it. Okay, so it has got 125 MB of data it found, and now you should get an option to export it. Export results. You basically say export. Then this is just a report which is available. Download report. I think you need to. Why is my search not? My old search should show up here because I'm saving that search. I don't know why it just goes away. Yeah, see, both the searches are available, right? So here you go and say export result on all items. So one PST for each mailbox, and all the data will get exported. The export is getting prepared. And then you go here in export. Then it is preparing the data here. You copy to clipboard this key, and then you, when it is done, then you basically go ahead and download the result. It's a very good way to basically dump all the data out of your tenant if you want to. But again, why would you want that? Your data is safe and secure in Office 365. But yeah, eDiscovery is a process with which you can do a master search on the whole tenant and look for, I can say, a needle in a haystack. Okay, so you basically download the results from here. Most likely, this is not going to work on Chrome because last time I did it, it only works on Internet Explorer. So you have to go to protection.office.com from Internet Explorer, log in. You can do the whole process from here, but when the final download of data is concerned, then you have to do it from Internet Explorer. So you do this, Microsoft file gets downloaded. Yeah, it's not working. So do the same thing. First, wait for the prepare data to get completed, and then finally do the download result from an Internet Explorer window, not from the Chrome window. And that way, you will be able to get all the data, this 125 MB data, which is downloaded from Teams, from mailboxes. You'll get access to everything. So that's it, guys. That's what is eDiscovery. And this is a highly used component of Office 365. And this is something which you can write in your resume if you know and if you become expert on how to do this. This is very simple. The whole cloud is very simple. Okay. Now, data loss prevention. To comply with business standards and industry regulation, organization must protect sensitive information and prevent its inadvertent disclosures. Sensitive information can include financial data, personal identifiable information such as credit card numbers, social security number, or health record. With data loss prevention policy of Office 365 Security and Compliance Center, you can identify, monitor, and automatically protect sensitive information across Office 365. With a DLP policy, data loss prevention, you can identify sensitive information across many locations such as Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. Prevent accidental sharing of sensitive information. So, accidentally, if a user is going to send an email with a credit card number included in it, you can give him a warning label in the Outlook, or either you can give a warning where it will say that looks like you're trying to send a credit card number, this is not the correct thing to do, to remind him. Second, if he goes ahead and send it, you can block the email and not let it go outside the organization. So you can prevent accidental sharing. Monitor and protect sensitive information in desktop versions of Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. So in Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, DLP is built in with the latest version of Office, and this is the beauty of having an Office 365 and Microsoft suite. You are on a Windows 10 machine which knows how Office 365 works. You are using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, which is Microsoft products, so they know how DLP work. You are using Office 365, which is fully aware of how Windows 10 and Office application work. And these three people they are working together like friends, and they are providing you all the services, and you don't have to deal with them separately because they know each other so well that they are able to provide you the services seamlessly. So help user learn how to stay compliant without interrupting their workflow. Like I said, that with DLP, you can get a label in Outlook. As soon as somebody writes something like a sensitive information, you can show them a label which will say that you shouldn't do that. Those are the DLP policies. And finally, you can look at the DLP reports. And in DLP reports, you can see the incidents which have happened in data loss, how many users try to send credit card information, how many users try to do thing, and then you can take relevant action. You can inform the user, you can educate the user, or you can run company-wide trainings in your organization to tell them why they should not do it. So let's quickly have a look at data loss prevention here. There is a policy. First of all, under data loss prevention is a classification. So what you can do is that you can create the labels for your document, and like labels like confidential, and these labels will be available in email as well as office documents, etc. You can put all this information here. Okay, you have to put, so you have to put, I spelled it. So you can make sure that if this email is marked as confidential file or email, then there is an encryption which gets applied on it. You can do that. You can do a content marking on it, so you can create some kind of a watermark on that email or document, or put it in a header or a footer, whatever you want to do. So you can do some kind of content marking. So this is all happening on the enterprise level. Just imagine how powerful things which we are talking. You're going to create a policy here using a wizard, and with this policy you can do content marking on your Word documents, on your Excel documents, and people just need to select the confidentiality label from their Outlook or the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, which fully understand these things. Auto labeling, you can automatically label based on certain conditions. Automatically apply this label and add a condition. So content contains all of these or any one of these. Add sensitivity info type. So I'm in Australia, so I'll say If the email contains Australia bank account number, or if the document contains Australia bank account number, this, and Microsoft knows how these account numbers and everything looks like. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to think about the logic that how do I find out if the number written by the person is a credit card or is just something else? Because a number is a number. How can you just by looking at a number? But you know, you can. There are so many conditions around it. And Microsoft has done all the hard work. You just get to select here. How do you know what is the format of Australian driving license number? They know about it. So you say you can apply automatic sensitivity labels as well. And that's it. You create the label and the label will get created. You can publish this label. Publish this to we just created a label. Now we need to decide to whom do we want to publish it. These are once again settings. Apply this label to default document and email. Name and description, confidential label. Submit. So you just publish the label. You can also create retention labels. This is in terms of retention policies. You can define the sensitive info types. So these are the various info types which are available, and then they will keep getting updated by Microsoft. Or you can, if you know of some sensitive info type, you can also create like home address. So maybe you don't want people to send each other their home address, so you can create this. And then you can see requirement for matching, add an element. So this is now where you are getting into Microsoft space, where you are trying to define that how are you going to identify that the document or the information which is in the document looks like an home address. So I have never done it, but you can say it contains an expression. If it contains maybe street, if the document, if the content contains street, or maybe contains lane, or maybe contains building number or something like that, then you will, so you have to decide what is the matching criteria. Now here Microsoft did the hard work for you, here you are trying to do it. So I've never done it, but yeah, again you can research on it, go more and more expert on it. I'm sure you'll find 1,000 articles which will tell you how to define the sensitivity labels. And once you have done that, you can create a policy for DLP. Name the policy, my DLP policy. Choose locations. So where do you want to put it? You want to say that put this everywhere, on emails, on team chats, on channel messages, on OneDrive and SharePoint document, or you can choose specific location. Policy settings. Find the content that uses, you must select at least one classification type. So you created a label. So you're looking for okay. So sensitivity label is not supported in SharePoint and OneDrive and this and that. So we will go back and choose locations, and we will just say okay. Find contents that contain when with people outside my organization, only with people inside my organization. Yeah, so all these are the decisions which you have to take. And what do we do if we detect sensitive info? Show policy tip to the user. Now, policy tip appear to the users in their Outlook, OneDrive, and SharePoint. So there is a small pop-up which comes up here. And this is the beauty of the whole system, that a small pop-up will come and which will tell them, and you can customize the tip. You can basically decide what you want to write in that tip. You can say that, don't do it, mate. You're doing it wrong. You're not supposed to do it. Or whatever you want to. You can put your email address. Talk to me about it. And as soon as the user says, hey, he's going to ping you, dude, I was trying to send an email with credit card information and your name showed up and you said, don't do it. What this is about? And then you can educate the user. And these are all the settings. And block the people from sharing restricted access to shared content. Or encrypt the email message. Whatever you want to. Or send an incident report. That's up to you, what you want to do. That's it. You created a DLP policy, data loss prevention. Again, very deep topic and lot of things which you can do. So it's not letting me do it for some reason because this is a very deep topic. I don't want to go into the detail of troubleshooting this thing, but you need to understand what is data loss prevention and how do you implement data loss prevention. So these are the kind of things which you have to understand. Now, data loss prevention in itself, it's a huge paying kind of a job because a lot of organizations are coming up with their plans to implement data loss prevention. And if you talk about sensitivity labels and DLP in your resume, that's going to look good. Again, try more to create this policy, maybe do an end-to-end practical of this, but this is beyond the scope of this particular training. You just need to understand what it is and yeah, try to learn more about it. Okay. Okay, so here is what we covered in this module. We did have a look at Office 365 Security and Compliance Center, the centralized place from where you can implement security and compliance to the whole Office 365. We looked into multi-factor authentication, and then I showed you how to use conditional policies or conditional access policies. Then I showed you how to retain your data for 7 years and 10 years using retention policies. Then I told you how to actually discover the retained data when the need comes in using the keywords or looking at the location. That's the eDiscovery or the content search. And then finally I talked about how to prevent the end user from sharing sensitive information and making sure that your company follows the security protocols for the GDPR compliance and the other appropriate compliance. So I hope you really liked it, and I was not able to complete the data loss prevention practical because it required more information and more thorough reading into the exact procedure. But I recommend you to do it yourself because it's not that difficult. Everything is provided in cloud. You don't have to install servers or anything. You just have to use it. Now here are your action items. Perform e-discovery on mailboxes in your organization. So maybe put some data in those mailboxes and try to do an e-discovery. Perform e-discovery on SharePoint sites, Teams and other components. Complete the process of content search from the search to the export of data. So I left you to the point where I said that you have to do it from Internet Explorer. So wait for that thing to go 100% and then open this thing from Internet Explorer and then download the content. Implement retention policy in your organization, so you can put different kind of retention policies, 7 years, 10 years on different content. So do that and then read more about data loss prevention and try to implement it. So that's it for this module, guys, and I will see you in the next module soon. Take care. Bye bye.